Lauren Whitaker was 38 years old when she buried her husband and 2 children alone. 6 months earlier, while she stood in a quiet funeral chapel choosing flowers and caskets, her parents were at a country club celebrating her younger sister's birthday. When the police called to confirm the deaths of Ethan, Chloe, and Lucas Whitaker, Lauren had dialed her parents in shock, her voice breaking as she delivered words no parent should ever hear. Her father's response was calm, practiced, and devastating. "Today is Vanessa's birthday," he said. "We can't come." In that moment, something fundamental ended. It was not just a phone call or a relationship. It was Lauren's lifelong role as the dependable daughter who absorbed disappointment without protest. Before I continue, please take a moment to like and subscribe. I'd love to know where you're watching from today. What her family did not know, and could not yet imagine, was that Ethan's death would set into motion consequences they never saw coming. The life insurance payout would shock them later, but that money was only the surface of a much larger transformation. The true reckoning would arrive months later, quietly, through resilience, preparation, and a legacy built from unbearable loss. The morning everything changed began like countless others. It was a Tuesday in early March, and the Whitaker house smelled of maple syrup and coffee. Ethan stood at the stove flipping dinosaur-shaped pancakes for 6-year-old Lucas, who insisted every plate needed a T-Rex. 8-year-old Chloe practiced her violin in the living room, her notes uneven but determined. Lauren watched it all from the doorway, committing the ordinary scene to memory without knowing why. At 7:45 a.m., she kissed them goodbye. Ethan smiled, his breath warm with coffee as he whispered, "See you tonight. Taco Tuesday." At 8:17 a.m., a semi-truck driver, intoxicated and exhausted after driving well beyond legal limits, ran a red light at the intersection of Maple and 3rd. The collision was immediate and catastrophic. Police later told Lauren that Ethan and the children never had time to react. They assured her the deaths were instant, as if that knowledge could soften the damage. It did not. Lauren was in a client meeting when her phone rang. "Mrs. Whitaker, this is Officer Mark Reynolds with State Police," the voice said. "There's been an accident." The room seemed to tilt. She did not remember leaving the building or driving to the hospital, only the endless hallway outside the morgue, lit by harsh fluorescent lights that hummed relentlessly. The identification process was conducted with clinical care and quiet respect. Lauren identified them one at a time. Ethan first, then Chloe, then Lucas. Each moment felt unreal, as though she were watching someone else's life unravel. The driver had survived with minor injuries. His blood alcohol level was more than 3 times the legal limit. Lauren made the call to her parents from the hospital parking lot, her hands trembling so badly she nearly dropped the phone. Her mother answered, laughter audible in the background. Lauren spoke through sobs, explaining the accident, the deaths, the immediate decisions she could not face alone. After a brief silence, her father took the phone. He listened without interruption, then responded in the same measured tone he used for scheduling conflicts and minor inconveniences. "Today is Vanessa's birthday," he said. "We've had this planned for months." Lauren asked for help. She asked for her mother. She asked for presence, for comfort, for anything. Her father reminded her that Vanessa did not handle disappointment well and that changing plans would upset her. In the background, Lauren heard her sister's voice, sharp and impatient, asking why she was being interrupted. The call ended quickly. Lauren sat in her car staring at the dashboard, convinced she had misunderstood. When she called back, her mother whispered apologies but repeated the same message. "The funeral home could wait," she said. "They would help later." Lauren hung up with scraped hands still covered in Lucas's dinosaur bandages and the unbearable knowledge that her children were lying in a morgue while her parents chose a celebration instead. Something in her hardened quietly. For the first time, she began to count what she had always been told to ignore. Lauren's childhood explained everything. She had been the reliable one, the daughter who never caused trouble, who absorbed responsibility without complaint. When she was 17, she gave up a full scholarship so Vanessa could use the family college fund for a year abroad. When her mother had hip surgery years later, Lauren took unpaid leave to manage medications, meals, and appointments while Vanessa stayed away. At Lauren's wedding, Vanessa announced a pregnancy. At Lauren's promotion, Vanessa's divorce became the focus. Ethan had noticed the pattern long before Lauren did. "They've trained you to disappear," he once told her after a family dinner she had spent 6 hours preparing, only for Vanessa to arrive late with takeout. Lauren had defended them then. Now, standing alone in grief, she finally understood. The problem had never been her effort. It had been their indifference. And without realizing it yet, Lauren was standing at the beginning of a life that would no longer be shaped by their neglect. The funeral took place 4 days later at Gracewood Memorial Chapel. Rain fell steadily, as if the sky itself had lost restraint. Ethan's colleagues filled the left side of the chapel, men and women who spoke of his quiet competence and kindness. His parents, Eleanor and Richard Whitaker, had flown in from Seattle despite their health challenges and sat in the front row, holding each other in silence. Lauren stood alone between 3 caskets. The smallest one belonged to Lucas, painted with hand-drawn dinosaurs by the funeral director's teenage daughter after hearing how much he loved them. Chloe's was adorned with delicate musical notes. Ethan's was simple oak, exactly as he had once said he wanted. Lauren waited for her parents to arrive, even though she already knew they would not. She kept glancing toward the empty pews reserved for them, hoping reason might suddenly appear. It did not. After the service, Eleanor touched Lauren's arm and whispered, "You should never have had to stand here alone." Lauren nodded, unable to speak. That night, Vanessa posted photos online from her birthday party, smiling, champagne in hand. The caption read, "Best night ever." Lauren saw it while still wearing black, her hands shaking as she closed the app. The days that followed blurred together. Funeral bills arrived quickly. 3 burial plots, 3 services, 3 caskets. The total exceeded $30,000. Sitting across from the funeral director, Lauren stared at the itemized list while he spoke gently about payment plans. Her household income had vanished the moment Ethan died. The house, recently renovated, carried a heavy mortgage. Her consulting work barely covered groceries. Ethan's parents offered what they could, slipping a small check into her hand with apologetic tears. "It's all we have," Eleanor said. 2 weeks passed with no word from Lauren's parents. Then her mother called. Her tone was casual, almost cheerful. "We've been thinking," she said. "Did Ethan leave anything?" "Insurance, maybe." Lauren felt something sharp settle in her chest. "I'm still sorting things out," she replied carefully. Her mother sighed. "Family helps family. Vanessa and Brian are trying for a baby. Treatments are expensive." Lauren ended the call without arguing. This time, the shaking in her hands came not from grief, but anger, clear and focused. She began to understand that her family's concern had limits, and those limits ended where money began. A week later, Vanessa arrived unannounced. She walked into the house as if it were already hers, glancing around with thinly disguised calculation. Brian followed, running his hand along the granite counter. "Nice place," he said. "Worth a lot." Vanessa smiled tightly. "You shouldn't be alone in a house this big," she said. "It's not healthy." Lauren asked them to leave. Instead, Brian made an offer, far below market value, framed as generosity. "Quick cash," he said. "Family discount." Lauren stood very still. "Get out," she said quietly. Vanessa's expression hardened. "You've always been ungrateful," she snapped. That evening, Lauren's father called to scold her for being rude. "You think about yourself too much," he said. Lauren laughed once, short and hollow. "I buried my children alone," she replied. There was a pause. "It's time to move forward," he said. "Vanessa is trying to create life." That sentence ended everything. Lauren hung up and felt something unexpected. Relief. For the first time, she stopped asking for understanding that would never come. The next morning, attorney Andrew Collins came to the house. He carried a leather briefcase and spoke with careful respect. "Your husband was meticulous," he said. "More than you realized." He explained that Ethan had taken out multiple life insurance policies over 8 years, totaling $5 million. Lauren stared at him in disbelief. "That's impossible," she said. "We struggled." Collins nodded. He planned quietly. Ethan had anticipated complications. He had included safeguards, legal barriers that ensured the money could only be used by Lauren. There was also a letter, written years earlier. In it, Ethan explained his concern that Lauren's family would try to claim what they had never earned. Collins placed the envelope on the table and gave her time. Lauren cried as she read it. Even in death, Ethan had protected her. For the first time since the accident, the future felt possible. Not easy, not painless, but possible. 2 months later, Lauren ran into Vanessa at a grocery store. Vanessa was loud, surrounded by friends, and clearly drinking. She announced Lauren's inheritance to the aisle, framing it as selfishness. Phones came out. People stared. Lauren said nothing. She walked away. 3 days later, her parents demanded a family meeting. 20 relatives filled the living room. A therapist Lauren had never met introduced herself. The word intervention was used. Money was mentioned repeatedly. Lauren listened quietly, then stood. "This is about greed," she said. "Not grief." She left. That night, Vanessa posted online, claiming Lauren was unstable. The post spread quickly, but so did the truth. Ethan's best friend commented first. Then his mother. Then neighbors. Screenshots circulated. Public opinion shifted. Lauren did not respond. She didn't need to anymore. The silence that followed was no longer lonely, it was protective. And from within that silence, something new began to take shape. The backlash did not end quietly. Within days of the grocery store incident, Lauren's parents began calling again, this time with urgency disguised as concern. Her father left voicemails reminding her of family unity and shared responsibility. Her mother cried softly, asking why Lauren was being so distant. Vanessa sent messages alternating between guilt and praise. Lauren did not respond. Instead, she focused on what Andrew Collins had advised: protect your peace and follow the plan Ethan left behind. Collins arranged a private meeting with the insurance provider's senior leadership, explaining that Ethan's policies included uncommon clauses requiring executive oversight. Lauren assumed it would be a formality. She arrived nervous and exhausted, expecting paperwork and timelines. Instead, she was escorted into a quiet office overlooking the city, where Rebecca Sloan, the CEO of Summit Crest Life, stood to greet her personally. "Your husband was extraordinary," Rebecca said. "Not just in preparation, but in foresight." Lauren sat down, sensing that this meeting would change more than her finances. Rebecca explained that Ethan had consulted for the company years earlier on security systems. His attention to detail had impressed everyone. When he purchased the policies, he insisted on legal protections that prevented interference from extended family. He also recorded a video to accompany the documents. Rebecca asked gently if Lauren wanted to see it. Lauren hesitated, then nodded. Ethan appeared on the screen, calm and composed, wearing the blue tie Chloe had picked for him. "If you're watching this," he said, "it means I couldn't protect you the way I wanted to." He spoke plainly, without drama. He told Lauren the money was hers alone, not to fix others, not to prove anything. "Build something that gives meaning to this pain," he said. "Do not let them take this too." When the video ended, Lauren sat silently, tears falling without sound. Rebecca slid a folder across the table. "He trusted you completely," she said. "And he was right too." Lauren made her decision that night. Instead of spending the money on escape or indulgence, she would create something lasting. With Collins's guidance, she established the Whitaker Legacy Foundation, dedicated to families who had lost loved ones to drunk driving. $3 million was set aside to fund it. The rest remained protected for Lauren's future. She worked quietly, reviewing applications herself, speaking directly with parents who sounded just as lost as she once had. The first grant went to a grandmother raising her granddaughter after a fatal crash. Lauren cried after the call, not from grief, but from purpose. Within 5 months, the foundation helped more than 100 families, covering funeral costs, counseling, and education support. Lauren avoided publicity, refusing interviews and keeping her name out of press releases. The work grounded her. It gave structure to days that had once felt endless. And for the first time since the accident, Lauren woke each morning with a reason to move forward. The foundation grew faster than expected. Hospitals began referring families directly. Police officers kept the foundation's cards to hand out at accident scenes. Ethan's former employer donated generously in his memory. Eleanor Whitaker sent handwritten notes with small checks each month, thanking Lauren for honoring her grandchildren. Lauren hired 2 staff members, both parents who had experienced similar losses. The office became a place of quiet understanding, where no one needed to explain their pain. Meanwhile, Lauren's family watched from a distance. Vanessa attempted to attach herself to the foundation online, sharing vague posts about family charity work. Lauren ignored them. She knew attention would come eventually, but she wanted the foundation strong before it did. When a local journalist finally reached out, praising the impact and asking to tell the story, Lauren hesitated. She thought of the families still waiting for help. One article, she decided, focused on the mission, not the drama. The article ran on a quiet Sunday morning. "Local widow turns tragedy into hope," the headline read. It detailed the foundation's work, the lives changed, the quiet woman behind it who refused recognition. By noon, Lauren's phone was filled with missed calls. Her parents left excited messages. Vanessa texted congratulations and asked why she hadn't been told sooner. That evening, Lauren stood at the cemetery, placing fresh flowers on 3 graves. She read the article aloud, telling Ethan how the foundation had helped hundreds already. "This is what you wanted," she whispered. For the first time, the silence around her felt chosen, not imposed. She turned off her phone and walked home slowly, knowing that the attention would bring consequences, but also knowing she was no longer afraid of them. The foundation was real. Her strength was real. And what came next would finally force her family to face what they had lost. The consequences arrived faster than Lauren expected. The morning after the article ran, her parents showed up at her house without calling. Lauren watched through the security camera as her father paced the porch and her mother dabbed at her eyes, rehearsing concern. Vanessa arrived 20 minutes later with Brian, carrying a bouquet of grocery store flowers still wrapped in plastic. "Lauren, open the door," her father called. "We need to talk." Lauren did not move. Mrs. Judith Hale, the neighbor who had quietly watched Lauren endure the worst months of her life, stepped onto her lawn. "She's not available," she said sharply. "And after what you did, I'd suggest you leave." Vanessa scoffed. "This is family business." Judith shook her head. "Family doesn't skip funerals." Her father threatened to call the police, claiming Lauren was unstable. When Officer Mark Reynolds arrived, he listened calmly, then turned to the group. "Ms. Whitaker is under no obligation to open her door. You're trespassing now." The group dispersed reluctantly. Lauren exhaled, realizing she had not once felt the urge to let them in. 2 days later, a formal letter arrived from her parents' attorney requesting a meeting regarding their involvement with the foundation. Lauren forwarded it to Andrew Collins without comment. He scheduled the meeting in his office. When everyone was seated, Collins opened a sealed envelope. "Your son-in-law anticipated this," he said evenly. He read aloud Ethan's letter, written years earlier. It stated clearly that no family member who failed to support Lauren during her greatest loss would ever be permitted access to his estate or foundation. Vanessa interrupted angrily, but Collins continued. He presented documentation, financial records, messages, timelines. Then he played a short video. The camera panned across Gracewood Memorial Chapel on the day of the funeral, lingering on the empty pews reserved for Lauren's family. The timestamp was visible. No one spoke. "These bylaws are enforceable," Collins concluded. "Any attempt to challenge them will trigger public release of this material." The meeting ended without further argument. For the first time, Lauren saw uncertainty on her parents' faces. The fallout was swift and public. An edited video combining Vanessa's birthday photos with footage of the empty funeral pews spread across local social media. Vanessa's employer issued a statement citing values misalignment and terminated her contract. Brian's business partners withdrew from their venture. Lauren's father was quietly removed from his church board. Invitations stopped arriving. Friends stopped calling. When reporters reached out to Lauren for comment, she declined. "The foundation's work speaks for itself," she said through her attorney. Meanwhile, the Whitaker Legacy Foundation expanded into neighboring states, partnering with trauma counselors and victim advocacy groups. Donations increased. Families wrote letters describing how the support had carried them through nights they thought they wouldn't survive. Lauren read every one. She felt no satisfaction watching her family's reputation crumble, only a quiet sense of closure. Consequences had arrived without her lifting a finger. That winter, Lauren sent simple holiday cards to her parents and sister. Inside each was a printed note: "A donation has been made in your name to the Whitaker Legacy Foundation." The amount was modest, publicly listed among hundreds of other contributors. No special recognition. Her mother called repeatedly. Lauren did not answer. Months later, she learned through Judith Hale that Vanessa was pregnant. The news stirred conflicting emotions, but Lauren acted without bitterness. She instructed Collins to establish an anonymous education trust for the child, accessible only after adulthood. "Why?" Collins asked gently. Lauren thought of Chloe's violin and Lucas's dinosaurs. "Because kindness doesn't require an audience," she said. "And because Ethan would have wanted it that way." The decision brought her peace, not reconciliation. She understood now that boundaries and compassion could exist together without contradiction. 1 year after the accident, Lauren stood at the cemetery holding the foundation's annual report. Over 1,000 families had been helped. She spoke softly to the 3 headstones, telling Ethan about the counseling programs, telling Chloe about the music therapy, telling Lucas about the books sent to grieving children. "Your legacy is real," she whispered. The grief had not vanished, but it no longer defined her. Lauren had sold the old house and moved closer to the cemetery, walking there each morning with coffee, choosing remembrance over avoidance. Her life was quieter now, smaller in some ways, but filled with purpose. The family she once begged for support had been replaced by one built on presence and care. As she left the cemetery, Lauren felt steady. What remained was not loss alone, but meaning forged from love, intention, and resolve. Time did not soften the loss, but it reshaped it. In the months that followed, Lauren settled into a rhythm built around intention rather than obligation. Each morning began with a walk, each afternoon with foundation work, each evening with quiet reflection. She hosted weekly support meetings in the Foundation's modest office, listening more than she spoke. Parents who once arrived hollow-eyed began to sit a little straighter by the 4th or 5th meeting. Some brought photos. Some brought anger. All brought grief. Lauren never rushed them. She had learned that healing did not respond to pressure. One evening, after the last chair was folded and the lights dimmed, Daniel Brooks lingered by the door. "Ethan would be proud," he said simply. Lauren nodded, feeling the truth of it settle without pain. Pride no longer felt like betrayal. It felt earned. She had stopped waiting for apologies that might never come. What mattered was the work continuing, steady and real, regardless of who acknowledged it. Her parents attempted contact again that spring, this time through handwritten letters filled with regret and softened language. Lauren read them once and placed them in a drawer without response. Forgiveness, she had learned, was not an invitation. It was a boundary drawn with compassion. Vanessa sent one message after the birth of her daughter, a single photo attached, the baby wrapped in a hospital blanket. Lauren looked at it quietly, then forwarded instructions to Andrew Collins to ensure the education trust remained anonymous and protected. No notes. No explanations. The child would grow with opportunity, not debt. Lauren believed that was enough. At the Foundation's annual meeting, the board approved new chapters in 3 additional states. The vote was unanimous. As applause filled the room, Lauren remained seated, hands folded, eyes closed briefly. This was not victory. It was continuity. And that mattered more. On the 2nd anniversary of the accident, Lauren visited the cemetery alone. She brought fresh flowers and a folded copy of the Foundation's latest impact report. She read portions aloud, describing the families helped, the programs launched, the children who had returned to school after months of silence. "You're still changing the world," she told Ethan. She smiled softly when she mentioned Chloe's music program and Lucas's book initiative. The wind moved gently through the trees. For the first time, Lauren noticed that the ache in her chest did not tighten when she stood there. It expanded instead, making room for memory without collapse. She realized then that love did not end with death. It changed form. It became action. She left the cemetery with steady steps, carrying grief not as a burden, but as proof of connection. Lauren's life remained quiet, deliberately so. She declined awards and interviews, redirecting attention to the Foundation's beneficiaries. Her chosen family grew organically, colleagues who stayed late, neighbors who checked in, parents who understood without explanation. Holidays were spent simply, sometimes alone, sometimes shared. The noise she once chased no longer appealed to her. Peace had a different sound. One evening, as she closed the Foundation office, Lauren paused to look at the wall where children's drawings were pinned, dinosaurs, violins, houses with bright windows. She felt a familiar warmth. Not happiness as it once was, but something deeper and steadier. Purpose. Lauren Whitaker did not rebuild her life to prove anyone wrong. She rebuilt it because love demanded continuation. The family who once overlooked her no longer defined her story. What defined it now were the lives she touched, the hand she held in dark moments, and the legacy shaped by care rather than resentment. She had learned that boundaries were not cruelty, silence was not weakness, and grace did not require proximity. Some people were lessons. Others were anchors. Ethan, Chloe, and Lucas remained her compass. And each day, as Lauren chose intention over obligation, she honored them, not with words, but with a life lived fully, quietly, and well. Thank you for staying with the story until the end. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video and share your thoughts in the comments.